I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Miss Sandy Gilliard will give the invocation.
Let us pray. Father, in the name of Jesus. God, we pause from this day, oh God, to give you thanks for what you've already done. We thank you for traveling mercies. We thank you, oh God, that it is well thus far. And now, God, we invoke your presence into this meeting. God, that you will guard and guide our hearts and our minds. God, help us to be focused on what is at hand. God, help us to realize that even though we're individuals, we're working as one. And all of our goals are the same. That is for what is in the best interest of our children, our schools, our communities, and all stakeholders. Now, God, your presence has been invoked, and we pray, oh God, for your divine guidance. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen. We'll have a word first from the superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to welcome everyone here today. Just give a quick background on why we're meeting today. The board and myself met last week in our master board training and, talked about some issues and some things we can do to better work together, especially improve communication. And I just want to introduce and recognize Tina Pinkerton in the audience. She's our facilitator from the School Board Association. Thank you, Tina. Thank you for driving all that way from Alachua County and being here today.
In that weather.
Right. So she's been very valuable to helping us, and we're a work in progress, and sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we don't. But we're here trying to work on a very important issue today. And in that meeting, it was decided instead of meeting individually, the board asked, could we meet as a group, call a special meeting, and really just ask questions so they could talk together in the sunshine. And I welcome that. This is a very important decision. And what we have done today, our staff, is assembled folks from my staff and also Sheriff Deloach, who's been gracious enough to be here. And just to give you an opportunity to ask some questions while they're here and where we don't have people come up and down to the podium, just have them sitting there and just have this a wide open discussion. Just to introduce everybody here, Travis, as you know, is our Chief of Security. He's here to answer questions about school hardening or some of our procedures and that type thing. Of course, Sheriff Deloach is here to answer any questions about our SROs, anything related to law enforcement, the Guardian program, things that we've talked about. Rhonda is going to be here to answer questions about finances and what the different options and what it might cost. And then Mr. Bowen is here to answer any other questions related to operations. And is there anyone else besides them that you wanted to ask questions of that we are missing? I tried to find the people that are the most pertinent to this situation. So anyway, with that, I'll turn it back over to Madam Chair. Just want to give you an idea of.
Well, before we get started, I just wanted to say that as chairwoman of this school board, all we've ever wanted is a seat at this table. To be involved in, to discuss, and to come up with a plan that we can all agree upon and that is best for the students in Putnam County. And I've said this before, had the sheriff and the superintendent sat down with us prior to the news conference and gotten our input, this might have had a different outcome. Who knows, we might not be here today, but we are, and it's a good thing. And while I understand that much of what the sheriff's plan, what's in it, has to be kept confidential, not including the board at all was clearly the wrong way to approach this. But I am so encouraged that we're here today. We can ask you questions. We can talk about this. I'm encouraged that a task force has been formed, and I look forward to hearing from their ideas. I don't know if any of the other board members would like to make a statement before we start asking questions.
Ditto. I'm pleased that we're here at the table and working together as a community.
I'm good.
I would say that as our legal counsel has continued to diligently seek information, he did give us another update actually this weekend. And if you could maybe reiterate, that to me was a huge part of this process. Again, I think as the board, search and look for input as the state unfolds this new law, there's so many components to think about, and I feel like that your input is very valuable, especially the last input. Every time I read the email and I try to make informed decisions, I always try to look at different perspectives, and then of course, how the interpretation of the law 7026 does come across as we try to implement it. So I don't know if we need a summary at this point. I don't know if everybody read it, but it did.
I did.
I'm proud of you, Dave.
And that date was July, in July 1st and July 18th.
Oh, look, I did print them out too, because
Okay.
I'm sorry I keep telling board members,
Oh,
we got
I
the
don't
letter.
need it. I read it. I thought I got it verbatim.
Expect that David opened his email
I
and read
know,
that.
and I asked Sharon to print them out just
Only
because
need one,
I
Dave.
hate talking about a document I feel that the board members need to be informed equally, and that's why when you get an email, and I don't know if my fellow board members have read it, but I'm trying to make an informed decision about one piece of information. Now, I know when I go personally and talk to different people in the community or state representatives, then you're not going to get the same information. But when we get an email, I would hope that even if we have to print them out, so anyway, that's important to me. I appreciate you being diligent in that and continue to, seek out all forms of communication related to that and always
I would
pass along.
appreciate you doing a brief
Okay,
overview.
sure. So as all of you know, there is a weekly telephone conference among the school board attorneys throughout the state of Florida, great legal minds, who get together once a week and brief each other on things that are going on a state level and also in their individual districts. The phone call is led by Joy Frank, who's general counsel to the Florida School Board Association and for the superintendents. And she is a wealth of information, and she started off this last call by explaining that the Department of Education has launched a new website, fldoe.org/safe-schools. I was just on the website again. It has a lot of good information on there. And it has the bill text, the summary, and sometime this week, it's anticipated there will be a Q&A section where a lot of the questions that are coming from different parts of the state will be put out for public view and an answer, at least according to DOE. Joy Frank also mentioned that she sent a survey to all superintendents regarding how the school districts are paying for school resource officers. I assume that
Paying for them now.
pay currently, right? And it seems like most districts are on a 50-50 cost share basis, where the district pays for half and the sheriff's office pays for half. There was some discussion about, there's a 180-day school year. So in the past, school resource officers were there for that, and then the other 180 days, they were not part of the school, so the sheriff would have the job duties for that particular resource officer in place for non-school days. But in view of the new Senate Bill 7026, how that's going to look for summer school or other after-school programs, that's to be determined. All right. Other districts, they partner both with the sheriff and police chiefs. So it's not just money coming from the sheriff's departments to fund half of the school resource officer salary, but municipalities are also contributing money to the pot to help pay for those SROs that would be stationed or assigned to a school within that municipality. Also, there is some discussion about the language of 7026, where it says that a school safety officer shall be assigned to each school. And one of the earlier calls, there was some going back and forth among the attorneys, whether that meant there needed to be a school resource officer, one resource officer per school, or whether it could be interpreted more broadly. And now, the latest conference call, it seems that a consensus is building that the language of the statute is the broader interpretation, which means that multiple, or one resource officer may cover multiple schools. And it seems like that's the angle a lot of districts are going, especially for elementary schools.
Well, you have schools that are right across the street from each other and, you know, in different communities. And for instance, the old Mosley, and back when the campus across the street was E.H. Miller, you know, you could find ways to,
And Beasley's closed.
just a little bit of common sense tweaking.
Mellon
but
and
you're-
Black High.
But continue on, Charlie.
I mean,
Okay.
that the Mellon can use.
So, Nikki asked me to ask the question about, is anyone aware of any district who has formally voted to adopt the Guardian program yet? And no county had yet adopted the Guardian program, although the attorney for Brevard said that they were moving closer to that direction, but the board had not done a formal or final vote on it. And then also, if the districts do not adopt the Guardian program, the funding goes back to the governor to reallocate. And Joy Frank was asked how soon that reallocation would take place, and she predicted that it would be quick. Sometime after the start of the new fiscal year, July 1. But then everybody agreed that whatever money comes back to the pot in Tallahassee is not going to go very far when it's divided up among all of the counties thereafter. So don't expect that to be saving your budget with the money that's going to come back from Tallahassee. And that was pretty much all that was discussed last Friday.
Thank you. Okay.
Charlie, can I mention one thing in response to what you said on the summer deputies and the school resource officers that we paid for? Traditionally, in the past, it was a mutual agreement with the sheriff's office and law enforcement that they would, that's like a double benefit to the community, that they were on call. Even though they're school resource officers, if a bank is robbed right down the street, they're still on call. That used to be, Gator. I don't know that that's going to be the case still, but I would assume if there's a murder across the street, they would have to respond or should respond. So, I mean, we never had a problem in the past with them leaving a campus, or in the summertime, if they did other assigned duties and weren't particularly out of school, that was fine with us. They attended a lot of training and did a lot of training. So it never was a problem. I was just curious.
I can speak to that if you'd like. So we've actually changed our youth resource deputy schedule significantly from what they were several years ago. They were used during the summer months primarily to cover training for our patrol shifts so that they could fulfill all their annual training requirements. Now, what we've done now is we've shifted our focus from relieving those other shifts so that they can train. And our focus more specifically now is on summer programs for our students here within the county in cooperation with our juvenile crime prevention office that we partner with the school district on, putting on summer programs, supplementing our police athletic league programs and that type of thing. And certainly there is still a requirement that they maintain proficiency and attend all their required hours of training, and that takes up the balance of those remaining summer weeks.
All right, I just
Do we
wanted.
still pay, do we pay for that too?
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. The contract that we have with the board, I think, is is it $448,000? $444,000. So that comes out to roughly $49,000 to $50,000 of the cost of the deputy. As you know from some discussion in some previous meetings, for us to fully equip and fund a deputy sheriff for the first year is roughly about $110,000, and then in subsequent years it runs about $75,000 to $80,000. So it's not quite a 50-50 cost share that we have with you guys, probably more like a 60-40 split.
Well, that was the reason I mentioned this, because this conversation came up, has come up several times in past years, and it's never been deemed to be a bad situation, that we always had a cooperative relationship with law enforcement in paying that little bit of time. So thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Well, I understand that, but now that we may be required to bring on a bunch more, I mean, money is the problem, and I'd like to see help from, it takes a village.
Whoever we can get it from.
Whoever we can get it from. It takes a village, and, I don't know.
I'm just saying that, I was just trying to clarify that whatever the board as a majority decides will be, whatever it is, so. I'm through, Charlie. For now.
Okay,
And I did email all the questions you sent me, I sent to the sheriff and other staff members, just so they could prepare answers ahead of time.
So then, will they just go down the questions themselves and?
I thought y'all might wanna, just ask, just however you wanna do it, but, just ask your own questions of them, or ask the ones you've already sent them, however you wanna do it. But,
Well,
Madam Chair?
personally, I'd like to hear them, share the question and then a response. Then should we have any questions pertaining to that particular one, we can stop and others can offer input. Is that
They
is
have
that
the list?
good?
Well, I got some from Nikki and I got some from Sandy. Did I miss any from,
well, I'd already sent all mine, but
did you send it directly to them, or,
I had sent mine to Thomas.
okay, that's fine.
But
I
I mean,
know-
they're probably the same questions.
Now, I know there's some, there is some information that Rhonda has. I don't know if you asked specific questions about finances, that Rhonda has prepared some information for you too today, so if you want to, however you want to do it, we can just go
I'd like for them,
Go
if possible.
person by person, or however you want to do it, whatever y'all would like to do.
Just starting on this side, the original questions that I got were for the safety and security workshop, and then we put together this PowerPoint
Okay,
presentation.
yeah.
And translated that.
Okay.
The safety workshop.
That's true.
And I haven't gotten any.
Yeah, I haven't sent you any others. And I've got them here, but I'm sure they're the same.
So then,
You want Rhonda?
Well,
However you wanna do it.
before we do that, Gator, would you briefly go over your STAR program? Have you-
Yes, so if you're familiar with 7026 and have read the proposed legislation in there with regard to the GAR program, our program that we have proposed very closely mirrors the legislation, with the exception that we have actually imposed some additional training requirements above and beyond what the legislature has spelled out in this bill that was just signed into law. The bill actually calls for 132 hours of training. We have actually came up with a training program that is quite a bit more extensive than that, and is actually 156 hours. And we feel that it's necessary to have those additional hours in there to have these employees trained at a level of proficiency, if it's the will of the board, to make certain that everyone is trained and operating at a higher level of proficiency. I would offer to the board that the members who would participate in the STAR program would be better equipped to handle and retain a firearm and respond to an active attacker on campus than the average police recruit that graduates from St. John's River State College would be.
And that's all you want, that's all you can,
Well, I mean, I can tell you that we'll cover topics in the training such as weapons retention. There is a human diversity component to it, proper and safe handling of firearms, a legal component that specifically discusses their role in an active shooter investigation, as far as what their authority is limited to, and that's specifically and narrowly limited to only in the case of an active shooter on campus. For example, the members of the STAR program would have no legal authority to go and engage, say, a parent that's causing a disruption in the front office or break up a fight in the cafeteria. Those would be dealt with through contacting our communication center or a youth resource deputy that may or may not be on campus.
And who would be responsible for making the final decision who is selected at each school? It says, I read in one of my emails about the plan that they want 10 people in each school. I don't,
Oh, gosh, I would offer to you that it would be nearly impossible for us to train 10 participants in this program at every school. I'm not in a position where I can disclose how many we would prefer to have at every school.
but how would you, who's gonna make the last cut? Who's gonna be responsible for picking who they are?
Well, I think what we would do is we would work with the district to identify those individuals. Then we would go through and do a background investigation on them, much in the way that we do a background investigation on any of our new hires for deputy sheriff's positions, and then put them through a comprehensive psychological evaluation, just like we do a deputy sheriff hire.
Question, the attire of these people, will it be just casual dress? I know the STAR proposes they have a weapon, because that makes sense, but what would be the attire?
Will they have a badge on
Yes,
Not
the
just-
supposed to know who they are,
Right.
so.
Their identities would be kept strictly confidential.
Okay, so they would dress
dress
like
much
anybody
in the-
else.
Much in the same manner that all of you are attired
Okay,
now
okay.
and carry their firearms concealed.
Okay, next question. Some of the major concern when parents came at that first meeting following the press conference was arming teachers. And I know there's specific parts that we can't disclose because it may, weaken the plan. Yes or no? Are we looking at classroom teachers being
Can't.
armed?
No,
Okay.
because the bill is.
Yeah,
very
we're making
clear.
sure that this is heard.
The bill is very clear. Now, there is a carve-out if you have a classroom teacher who performs other duties assigned. Say, for example, if they are a coach.
So that just
Dean,
defeats the purpose of not having teachers.
And your administrators were teachers. That's what they went to school for.
well, if you have somebody that teaches 2 periods a day, and they take administrative responsibilities or discipline responsibilities, or they work in different fashions throughout the day, it would only, that's why we use them in different areas.
Let me just share this with you in your response to the question, Madam Chair. It is not our intention to arm classroom teachers.
What does it say?
This is from the
Statute.
actual bill. It says, excluded from participating in the Guardian program are individuals who exclusively perform classroom duties as classroom teachers, as defined in Chapter 1012. This limitation does not apply to classroom teachers of JROTC, a current service member, or a current or former law enforcement officer.
Okay, so then the
This is the part of the law
coaches
that really
then
bothers me is,
excluded.
quote, if a teacher performs any additional service on behalf of the school, he or she will be allowed to carry a gun into a classroom. If a teacher is also a coach or a club sponsor, as quite often is the case, they would be allowed to carry a firearm at school if selected. And that could potentially be a lot of teachers.
And this is STAR that you're sharing, and what
No,
you're sharing is
no,
this
that's-
statute?
This is Guardian.
Okay, Guardian.
What is that from?
It's one of my emails that I got from FSBA or not somewhere. I think it was. Tina's nodding her
What I just
head.
read you is the current law.
Okay, well, this is too.
but it would,
So,
it would
but I
have,
didn't,
Well, there's a lot of,
It was-
1,000.
yeah, this was interpreted by one of the senators. This was in a article.
Okay, I passive interpretation.
No, it's not an it is it was what they're saying, that's how it is interpreted.
But
is
then
what
the
they're
two
saying.
contradict.
Oh, there's often, there's
Yeah, I'll forward it to you.
105
Would you mind
pages.
reading that wording again?
Yeah.
Okay. If a teacher performs any additional service on behalf of the school, he or she will be allowed to carry a gun into the classroom. I mean, that they'd have it on.
Any additional service, any additional
I
service.
think
I
that's
know,
the
I read
loophole,
it.
if
I know what
if
it
could
says.
jump in.
Okay, I'm just saying, that's it right there in a nutshell.
Yeah, because the text of the bill says that individuals who exclusively perform classroom duties, so anybody who does not
Oh,
exclusively perform classroom duties, if they do classroom duties and something else.
Yeah, you're trying to,
Line is
Right,
that,
which could
Charlie?
potentially be a lot of teachers.
It's a
What line
loophole.
is that? I like the,
338.
but that's an intentional loophole to find,
38?
There is also a carve out in the statute that if someone is former retired law enforcement, and I think it may even say military, that they are not excluded from participating in the program as well.
That's
Even if they
correct.
taught 6 periods of history a
Even if they're
day.
classroom
Right.
teacher, but I can tell you that my position is, my intent is not to arm classroom teachers whose primary responsibility is instruction throughout the facility.
well, now, maybe Ms. Crawford, are you wanting to arm classroom teachers? I just had to say that. Look at her.
so
I'm sorry, that was fun.
the bill reads that the Guardian program, only if it's exclusive teacher, that's all you do, that you would not be included unless you're former military, former police officer, or current police officer.
Or any
correct?
additional
Or
duties.
JROTC instructor.
Or any additional duties.
Don't forget it's
But if you
volunteer.
have additional services, according to, that's where the interpretation comes, that you can be included to be part of the Guardian program.
That's correct. It just doesn't exclude them from participating in the program as the
Okay, that makes
legislature
perfect
has
sense.
spelled out in the bill.
Thanks for clarifying. Did you have?
I have a question is, if you are one of our employees and God forbid there's an accident or whatever, a shooter that they kill, who's liable? Are you liable or are we liable
I bear that liability personally.
personally?
Well, in my official capacity as sheriff.
As
Okay.
bonded servant of the.
They will deep pocket the school district also, though, wouldn't they, Charlie?
You can be sure that if there's a lawsuit, everybody's gonna be named.
That's right.
And when we first started, before 7026 was even enacted into law, we started the process of communicating with our insurance and risk management department, Deborah Shepard, about our side of the responsibility. And we don't have a good answer on that yet, so I'm happy to hear the sheriff taking on the responsibility for that. But, in all seriousness, because 7026 is now the law, every school district is confronting this, and every carrier that comes on board to administer claims will have to carve out protection in light of this new bill. So I'm confident that when we are named as a defendant in a lawsuit, that the insurance company, the insurer, will have done what is required on their end in inking the insurance policy to protect us in accordance with what is an opt-in type of a program, this Guardian program, if the district so chose to go with that. So I feel better about it now that it's a law, and the insurance companies that we deal with are bound to follow the law and provide us coverage for those instances. But that's something that we will, and I will write that down to ask other districts on our next phone call, how they are communicating with their insurance companies to ensure that.
Because currently there's no case law probably.
Yeah,
I know there's a lawsuit now with Parkland, but
And that,
everybody's named.
and
but-
that one is pretty much because nothing was done on the resource officer side as far as as the people are concerned, in that he stayed out of it. So either way, God forbid,
You're-
as
you're
David
in-
said, whatever goes down, our best bet is to have what we feel is in the best interest, where we've worked on it and carved out what we feel we can live with.
Yeah, and I think Parkland will be the canary in the coal mine.
Oh, yeah.
To show how litigation in the future will unfold, and there are going to be lawsuits filed if they haven't already been filed. And I'm willing to bet the school district is named as a party.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay,
So-
next, oh,
So because it's law, the insurance companies are going to have to accommodate it.
Right.
But we don't know how much that's gonna cost.
We don't know that.
But there would definitely be a cost increase.
Sure.
Absolutely.
If you like. So we have already checked with the Florida Sheriff's Risk Management Fund, and they have agreed to insure these deputies, or these special deputies or participants in the Guardian program in the same way that they would insure a patrol deputy or a school resource deputy.
But that still doesn't
Yeah,
mean
we'd
they
still
won't,
have to-
they're still gonna, I mean, that's the way things work. It's just
We
gonna
still
happen.
need to be covered for it.
Yeah. And Charlie's right, his risk management will be in on that. I'm sure he'll be working with them on that.
Check out Kansas and Texas.
Kansas and Texas.
I had a quick question about the, keeping it completely, a secret. So let's say that, a child sees a concealed weapon, teacher bends down to pick up a book, sees an ankle holster, and goes home to tell mom, tells the class, tells whoever, the dean, or, no, it's not a classroom teacher, if it's a dean.
Anybody in the cafeteria.
Correct, whoever, what was your idea on once it is revealed? It's not if, it'll be once, because kids see everything. They'll be the first to know who's got an affair and I mean, I've seen it, it's awful, it's awful. So they know everything, and when anything's going on in the school, they'll know it. And I just wonder how, because again, that's 156 hours of training that a person puts in, and when one kid sees something and
It could be
tells
moved
somebody.
to another
it
school
doesn't-
like we do in the district.
I'm just asking
Well,
what he wants to do about it.
If there is an incidental exposure of a firearm and someone happens to see it, it wouldn't necessarily preclude them from their continued participation in the program.
Okay. So just because a kid because we were told originally, if anybody finds out, because again, the dean, the assistant principal has children and if they come home and watch their dad take and their kids, whatever, there's a million situations that, that the kids would see it and the kids would be, affected by it. So,
Well,
How important is the confidential part of that?
yeah.
I think it's extremely important to maintain the integrity of the program, but I can also tell you that despite our best efforts, whenever we have undercover detectives who are working on a special project or
Right.
investigation, ultimately, at some point in some of those investigations, their identity is sometimes revealed, and it varies to what stage the investigation is in as to how critical that is. I'm cognizant of the fact that children are very inquisitive and will likely find out who the members of the STAR program may be at some point.
Especially at the high school level.
Yes, but again, I don't think that would necessarily preclude them from continuing to participate in the program. And there are concealment measures that we can take with each of these individuals to mitigate that risk, to where it's almost non-existent.
The biggest problem I saw in trying to maintain anonymity would be in payroll records. If the school district was somehow contributing but I guess the money would be forwarded. Well, I thought about that early on, that public records requests would, they're gonna have to handle that really, really carefully, and I'm sure Ron probably knows what to do.
We've talked about that too, as far as a lot of this being exempt from public records.
That is actually exempt from disclosure because it's part of the school safety and security plan.
But Jane has given you a good idea. You could get facsimile weapons and let every teacher wear them one day, let the kids see them. Yeah, whatever you were talking about with, if the kids saw it, or Nikki, you know, that's just a thought. And then they all say, everybody's got guns, and the word spreads, and you don't
Well,
have to worry
and I
about
was-
people coming
you know,
up
and
there.
I was thinking about too, you know, it's 152 hours of training that's going to be done by your department. I don't know how many people from your department that includes. So they all know, and then they accidentally tell their wives, and then their wives tell their best friends. You know how it is on Facebook. You know, there's just so much potential for that to get out
It's gonna happen.
to the general public.
I
and
think
that
the major
concerns
stick
me.
is if we feel like that person's safety is jeopardized because of whatever, I mean, the point of it being confidential is to protect those people.
Right.
And, I'm not
Well,
sure
and
at
to
what
protect the
point, but I
kids,
think,
too.
I think, just to follow up on what Dr. Sorensen is saying, I think that we would have to evaluate those cases on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
And determine to what point their participation in the program may be compromised as a result of their identity getting out.
Well, the word, you know, it's like the air marshal program. It's very similar in the law that I read. And the key to this thing is like putting a police car, parking it on the side of the road with no one in it just to make people slow down. I mean, there's a lot of shell game and chess that go in with this for law enforcement. They want the appearance that there are guns in the school where kids, you know, they want the disenfranchised are so scared they got enough guns that they're not going to come back and do something foolish. So,
But then too, with the idea that you said, Jane mentioned, or Nikki, you said they mentioned, remember, this was a fear of our parents, of them being armed. So do we want to send that kind of shockwave into our schools that people are packing, even though you're saying with the facsimile of a weapon,
That was
we
just-
don't want to do that. So you tell Jane, we don't want to, I don't want to
well, that's,
be a
and
part of
that's
that.
fine, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking outside the box that
idea.
if you're trying to send a message that you're packing and you've got
Scott?
ultra-safe schools, that would be a very cheap way of protecting someone that's really packing. I mean, that's like parking an extra car in the
Well, that's
parking
like
lot.
being in the Wild Wild West.
Jane?
Well, substations are amazing, and
That-
I'm so excited.
I know, and I'm so
love it.
thrilled about that.
Yes.
I want to be a
That is
junior
wonderful.
That
deputy.
is wonderful.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
And
thank
I
you
didn't
very
get an
much.
opportunity at the last meeting, but I do want to take an opportunity to thank each of you for approving that measure. Not only does it allow us an opportunity to relieve some of our space constraints in the main office, because
You busting at the
we
seams?
are busting at the seams in the main office. And in addition to that, our South District office is in such a state of disrepair that with the expansion of 17 leaning room over our heads, our backs were up against the wall, and we had to find a.
And that's one of the most beautiful spots in Putnam County right
It
there.
is, and it's really an ideal.
It's a shame that-
It is.
But, and in a way, I'm glad because it's,
We're certainly pleased to have an opportunity to partner with the district and co-locate our South District office on Browning Pierce's campus and our Central District office on.
I've already noticed the impact. I walk that area in the mornings and evenings, and just with that police car sitting there, some of the, you know, how do I
atmosphere.
want to say it?
anytime you need
The-
another
the-
office, just let us
No,
know and
that's kind of what
we'll
I,
find
that's
some
kind of,
space for you.
that's
that
kind of what I
criminal
just said,
element
wasn't
that
it? You got a car
frequents
parked
our
there.
community looking for
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
It has kind of, so, yes, we welcome it in our community and at Brown and Pierce, yes.
As long as the parents aren't worried that there's a police car there packing, you know.
The last question about the Guardian program, several people have asked me, is there any equipment, I mean, they'll have, whether or not the sheriff's department buys the weapon, or what about a bulletproof vest? That is not something we would want them to wear, if they choose to wear, or what is their feeling on that?
Well, I don't want to necessarily.
I mean, how do you see it playing out if that?
Just
Yeah.
let me think about how I can craft a response to that.
Okay.
Because it would be very obvious, yeah.
There is a provision in the training and a mechanism by which we can actually deploy a concealable ballistic vest that would confer some protection for them.
Okay. So it's not like a big bulky kind that we've seen maybe on.
No, this is
Chips.
nothing like what you would see.
Gonna be streamlined
maybe,
to
a
make 'em look
traditional SWAT
good.
officer wear, or even the concealable vest that our deputies wear underneath their uniforms.
I guess it's to ask if our police force or in the past when we had them, did they wear them or not wear them, or is there choice?
We have, yes,
Okay,
they're active in the schools, they're
okay.
designed as a, similar to what they would call a go bag, is in my truck, so.
Travis is naturally hardened from working out.
Well, I think it probably is time for us to get to other questions. It doesn't matter to me who starts. Would one of you like to volunteer with your specific questions?
No,
Are they
we
gonna-
said we were gonna, since they have the questions,
Okay,
I
that's
thought we
fine.
agreed
That-
to allow.
I didn't
Oh,
say
okay.
anything about that, so.
Oh, I'm
But that's
sorry.
fine.
Sandy, I believe these are your questions here, so I'll read the questions and then anyone at the table, if it's okay with you all, will have an opportunity to respond. The first question is there any reason why we can't utilize retired military personnel? I think the short answer to that is, and Charlie, you may have some additional input here, is that there is no provision in the statute that would actually allow for that.
Okay. But I-
Option two, with a school security officer, if it were a district employee who happened to be a retired military person, that, it could be possible, but the statute does not carve out a special category for retired military.
Charlie, it doesn't, they're still required to be certified law.
That's right, they're required to,
I mean, but they could go
So
through
if
the
they were
training.
MPs and desired to become a part and join forces with you, that can't happen.
If they were a former military police officer, there is an equivalency of training classes they can go through at any of the local criminal justice training centers and then become certified law enforcement officers. But they would either have to be employed as a certified law enforcement officer
And be a
deputy sheriff
security
with
guard.
the sheriff's office.
So it would be like a hybrid.
with the school district.
Okay, all
So
right.
they couldn't go through the 152-hour program that you have,
No.
that you're,
Well, in theory, if we hire him as a school district employee, and we say, we want you to be part of the Guardian program and do the 156 hours of training, and your only job is to be a security guard, then legally,
You could hire an additional
you
police
could
officer.
hire a non-instructional staff member and call, that we don't even use terms for allocations for non-instructional. If they were just a non-instructional employee to us, and their main job was to be a safety officer and walk the perimeter and make sure that, whatever our allocation reads as a job description, and do the training, then
Can I have Rhonda, while we're on this topic, just talk about, I think cost might be a question, but you want to talk about that one option as far as what that might cost, depending on.
Know if that 152 hours would get them certified.
No, that would actually not be a requirement to certify them as a law enforcement officer.
But no,
Would it-
no,
would a
they'd be a
certified coach?
They would be that safety, whatever you called it,
but
safety deputy or.
the security officer, the option number two.
Right.
That person is also required to be a certified law enforcement officer.
Right.
Like option one, the school resource officer.
I guess it was looking at hiring a new position to be a guardian.
I think y'all are simply indicating why you're looking at hiring support staff that's former military, and those would be the people to participate in the Guardian program.
Yeah,
Well, that
kinda,
was
yeah.
kind of what,
You could hire them.
It's more like we're gonna start our own police force.
Well, you
again.
could, we do have our own police force. That's what I said, you'd hire them as our own police officers, but they'd still have to have a law enforcement
Right.
for
background. and have
option
to-
2, yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got, it's just a variety of issues that would go with that. I mean, if we were to so choose to go with that, I mean, you've got to look at, down the road, are we gonna put strong-willed assistants on buses that are having problems in rural areas? How are we gonna handle that? There's some more options that kind of, the school thing is pretty much, I see how that's gonna work. I don't know how we're gonna handle the after-school hours and perimeter, like you're talking about, perimeter, for school buses and school zones and things like that when they pick up. But go ahead.
Okay.
Did you want, Rhonda has some figures for you as far as the people you were talking about, as far as option 2?
Yeah, we can look at that. I want to reiterate about the safety funding that we got for the new year. Putnam's share is $790,220. So one of the things that I'm looking at, currently we have 8 school resource officers and 1 supervisor, and the district's cost of that is $444,024. And when we first started looking at this, we looked at getting a school resource officer in every school in the district. So we would need an additional 10 school resource officers and 1 supervisor. The year 1 cost of that would be $1.2 million, whereas year 2 and 4 were $799,000. The sheriff came forth with a proposal for us, where they would help share costs, and for 3 SROs and a supervisor, they would take the rest of our school safety funds over the 444, and they would kick in $145,000 additional dollars. So from our current safe schools, we could end up having 11 SROs and 2 supervisors. That's just to give you a little background information. That's things, I think we talked about that at the last meeting and everything. So if we went that route and went with the sheriff's proposal and used the rest of our school safety funds, we would still have 7 schools without a school resource officer. Utilizing the initial cost for that, that would be $775,117.77 if we did all SROs, which is option number 1, SROs in every school. And with that, that comes with, that would be 18 school resource officers and 2 supervisors. So we would have an additional cost to our general fund above the safe schools categorical of $775,117.77. That's year 1 if we provided the cost for all the equipment and everything for those additional 7 people. Year 2, it would drop down to a cost of $501,971.19 to implement and maintain option 2. And putting that into day-to-day dollars, first let me back up a little bit and talk about our budget. You all know how hard we all worked last year to do away with our overspend and to fund automatic raises. So we developed a plan. We made a lot of cuts, over $2 million in cuts, and we were able to provide the automatic raises to help out Title I because of House Bill 7069. We increased our fund balance by $700,000. We maintained in this year going forward, because we only receive 47 cents per student in base student allocation flexible funds. If we maintain the same saving measures that we implemented last year, you'll have to remember that we'll have to maintain last year's step awards given, because that's a recurring cost. And then July 1, if we are to give those automatic step raises again, and we've got an increased retirement cost this year because retirement went up again. We're already short on funds without further cuts. We're looking at a $300,000 hit to our fund balance right now without talking about any of this. With the budget that we have in place, what we receive, maintaining expenditures the same and giving step raises, if we implement those, we're over $300,000 short right now in the general fund. So not even talking about that $300,000, but looking at going with option 1, because we have to decide on these options. We've got option 1, which is all SROs. We got option 2, which is school safety officers. Option 3, which is the guardian program, and we can do 1, 2, 3, or a combination. So option 1 with that $775,000, because we all know that we cut just about everywhere we can, and a lot of the cuts, the $2 million, were administrative level. People, jobs that weren't renewed as people retired and everything. So I'm going to use, and please don't say that I'm saying we're going to get rid of teachers, because that's not what I'm saying.
He
But
doesn't.
I'm gonna look at teachers and paraprofessionals.
He's not gonna listen to you. That's how the press works.
I see that.
Look at that eye.
Yeah. So if we went with option one, and we had to cut $775,000 from our budget, if we looked at just first-year teachers, that would be, we would have to decrease our current allocations by 17 teachers.
I just don't see how that's an equal equation. I mean, the safety of our children and having teachers,
I understand, but we've got to have the money to do it.
When the governor gives you that money,
I agree,
it's
whatever
just
we have to do
not-
for the safety of our children is what we need to do. I'm just your dollar and cents person. I'm not saying this is.
I
what I
know,
want to
Rhonda,
do.
I'm just
I'm saying,
frustrated.
I know you are.
anytime the governor who is gonna run for a higher office is trying to get funds, and I read in this letter here, record funding, he's given record funding. They take it away from some categories that we would normally be getting anyway, and they block it off and make it categorical and send it and say, here, look what I've done. And that's essentially where we are, and my concern, or the thing I said earlier, and I listened to Kathy mention cars, and I listened to Sandy, because that was one of our initial thoughts when we started the idea on the stop center for the sheriff's department out in West Putnam, and now it's magnified. Just seeing a law enforcement vehicle would be a great deterrent, and that's why I mentioned, a little tongue-in-cheek, how funny it would be if everybody thought people had a gun, but cars could probably be bought and cheaper than hiring people and having aides that, just figure out some way to move them from place to place. I mean, like, you've seen law enforcement agencies do that. Park cars in certain areas and just move them from neighborhood to neighborhood and spot to spot in high crime areas just to kind of deter crime. There may be this committee may come up with some decoy type ways to save money and to make the appearance that we have more, and that's why I hate to say this in public, but let's say it, because I can't say it to you guys. Find ways to play the game and make it look like we're taking this serious. I mean, if you're coming to kill our kids or our employees, we need to be prepared to kill them before they kill us or capture them somehow. And deterrent is absolutely, and the mental health and the things that go in place are our best line of defense until it gets down to time to fish or cut bait. But I know that I've got enough confidence that I feel like Travis and the sheriff and the committee will look at trying to find ways to use PSA cars or use school buy cars that can be utilized that have lights on them, and maybe the lights don't work. Find
Ride the school buses.
ride the school buses. Yeah, find different ways to make it appear that things are different than. I mean, you don't want to look. I think 9 times out of 10 you're going to know who the shooters are. And
The committee continues to meet, if we can decide to continue to meet after we make the initial recommendation to the board, we'll certainly do that, but we've been tasked initially anyway to figure out how to implement this new bill.
yeah, I mean, you're going to have to continue to look at it, and I know Travis and you guys will. So I feel very confident on that. But
Rhonda, I'm sorry I interrupted you. Go
they're
ahead.
just some out of the box things that you could look at that. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to tell you it is a way to deter actions.
And I want, we continually get mandates, and it's things that we have to figure out a way to do it.
Right.
And that's just option one, and it is, of course, the highest cost option out there. If we put, we're given 3 choices, and we can combine them. If we put one in every school, I just want you all to know what it's gonna cost. We'll do what we have to do. We all know that the reason I went that route is we all know that salary and benefits are our highest cost, and of salary and benefits, the highest cost of that's instructional. So that's where I'll look at to begin with, because we cut so much from other pots last year. Option 2,
Can
we
I-
go with,
I'm sorry, can you just reiterate really quickly? In the option 1, you said that if we gave the remaining $340,000 toward the resource officers, that the Sheriff's Department offered to add $145,000 to cover 3 officers.
And 1 supervisor. They said that if we added any additional school resource officers, it would have to be another supervisor, because right now, there's 8 SROs and 1 supervisor. So this would be adding 4 additional people, 3 SROs and 1 supervisor, and it would take the balance of our school safety funds. We would maintain the $444,000 for the current 9 people total that we have. And they would kick in, the total cost of the additional 4 is $450,000. They're kicking in $145,000, and we kick in the balance, $306,000, because we gotta remember, we had to give a portion of it, $40,000 of it goes to charter schools.
Right.
The school safety funds.
The thing that hangs out there too is how long will the state even give us this money? We know that after a while, they just leave it all to us, and we have to find a way to fund it, and so,
Right now, it's in recurring dollars, that's all I can tell you.
right, and that recurring may be for one more additional year until things kind of smooth over with Parkland, and it's just, it's sad that that's the way it is.
And I want to reiterate on the Guardian program, where you said the money could come back to the districts, but not to count on it, is $67.5 million. And after the Guardian program is established, any leftover funds would come back to the district. But the piece that everybody's got to remember, that $67.5 million, only $500,000 is recurring funds. The other $67 million is a one-time deal. So if we utilize that, you know, to purchase additional people, it wouldn't be there in further years like the current school safety funding is. I looked at option 2, which was a school safety officer, and I broke option 2 down into 2 categories. Category 1 would be maintaining just the current contract that we have with the sheriff's office, which is for 8 SROs and 1 supervisor. That means we would need 10 school safety officers. So I did some research on the internet. I looked up what the average armed security officer salaries in Florida was, and I've got it by cities and things like that. So it came up with about a $30,000 salary. These would be district employees. They would be in the special risk retirement, which is 4.5%. They would have Social Security, health, life, Medicare, everything. So we're talking about a $45,000 salary benefit cost. Then you would have the needs of liability insurance, the psych exam, uniform, supplies, handguns, tasers, vests, probably a portable radio, maybe a laptop, I don't know. So estimated another $10,000, so for a total cost of $55,000. Now, I'm gonna say, all I'm talking about here is cost that I can think of.
And
Travis will need to talk more about what will happen is we hired these additional 10 people as a school safety officer as our employees. But if we went that route, we maintained the current contract that we have with the sheriff's office, and we covered the rest of our schools with a school safety officer. On top of the funds that we have, it would cost the general fund about $250,000, actually $243,282. That would be year 1 cost and everything. So you could then look at that and see,
And then the training, where would that take place?
that would be something that Travis would have to stick to.
Because they're our employees, okay.
And you would,
We would have
Travis,
to establish a PTO program, which I'm sure there's a cost associated.
Yeah.
And the sheriff's not, have you guys discussed whether you'd be involved with that training at all?
It would be a separate department.
Well, I mean, but they could train if they,
Well, that would be
chose.
up to the district if you chose that option, but again, you know, if you choose option 2, you're essentially looking to hire sworn law enforcement officers. So, Rhonda, your salary estimate may actually be substantially lower. Plus, there's also a hard fixed cost for a field training program. I can tell you that the sheriff's office, that fixed cost for us is about $65,000 per deputy sheriff that we employ for the first year for their field training program that they would go through.
Now, I would need, just as a sheriff's board, if we add, there would be some supervisors added on top of that as well.
and the $30,000 average, is that considered for the 180 days of employment, or is that 365?
it didn't really say, I went on to.
Okay.
This armed security officer salary in Florida on Indeed.com and on FloridaSecurityGuardSalary.com. So to me, that sounded like a low figure, but that's what I was coming up with.
I don't think those,
It's like
were
all
those
certified
certified?
guards.
Yeah, I don't think
It
those are
said-
certified law enforcement.
Well, it says armed security guards. so I don't know.
That's different, I think. It's
Those,
gonna be a little higher.
what Ron, the figures that Ron is talking about would be akin to the armed security guards in the white shirts that we employ down at the courthouse.
Right.
For additional security. They're not.
Like the ones that do the scanning, the,
Yes,
Yeah.
and I don't think would meet the requirements of 726.
We can update those figures if we get a current salary, but that's all I can find online. I can give a gator and get that, but knowing then all the extra things that Travis has told me today,
Well, and there's-
that we probably have to do, I don't think we would come out
There-
any cheaper going with them over.
I know it'd be a board decision ultimately, but, you know, vehicles is a consideration. I mean, if you're doing fully sworn law enforcement, if they arrest someone or they correct someone, if there's an emergency at the school down the road.
Gotta be outfitted.
Well, we're buying the vehicles
Well, I'm
with the
just saying,
Guardian program,
but
if we go with.
She didn't have those in her cost estimate.
Oh, okay.
And then you've got to think about, would we need to establish a criminal investigative unit with all of the supplies and needs that come with that?
Forensics and everything.
Well, no, I mean, in the statute, in the Senate bill, it just is a security guard, and that's all the job description would be. We wouldn't ask them to be that person. That would not be the person.
I think it says that's defined by 943, which is full sworn law enforcement.
Well, they have to be a certified law enforcement agent. And whether they go get their training and recertify their certificate or whatever, but they still would not, if there are employees, we wouldn't ask them to go, we would make their job description based upon a security guard. I don't know if it's completely laid out, in the Senate bill, but
I may have to have Charlie read it.
yeah, because I don't think the car and all that would be, I'm not sure why. It's a security guard, you're there when the kids are there, you're not after
I
hours.
think there's a distinct definition for law enforcement officer in that statute, and they have to be able to act more than a security guard.
well, I wonder why they made that distinction as a choice.
Yeah, because it says a
You know,
security
like
guard.
the three choices.
This is just my opinion.
Okay.
Because you can give the money back or go
A lot
cheaper.
of school districts in some of these bigger counties, Miami-Dade, Broward,
They have them.
that have full functioning
Police
law
forces,
enforcement
agencies.
You know, what we have here, there's two of us, and we're exclusively focused on school safety and truancy. But a lot of these departments are full functioning. Heck, some of them even have their own dispatch centers.
Like the
Duval
University of
County
Florida
does.
Police Department, kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, that's what option number two is. It's
Geared to them.
right to that kind of stuff,
Right.
because it makes it clear.
Because
that
they already have it in
distinction-
place.
Yeah, we can't afford to build up something.
I think that was just my point. If you do consider number two, just think about there may be additional costs with building up
Startup
your
costs.
own department, a full functioning department.
Well, that's, I guess, where it's not very clear, the full functioning, what the law requires, or what, and now with the current interpretation is not even one has to be at every campus. So now we're going back to, well, you can be assigned to 2 campuses. So now we're saying, well, we only need how many, 12 or 13, depending on the demographics. But I guess I'm just still, I don't understand why it can't be a cooperative. If you're training SROs, why would you not consider training the security guards if that was, if they were our employees? Because we always collaborate. You guys come to the school and you do stuff with Travis. So I guess if we added 10 of these, why would they not be trained the same as the SROs if they're law enforcement? Like, why would that be our responsibility rather than, I guess,
Well, I think the answer to that is if you decided to hire school safety officers, according to the definition in chapter 943 of what a law enforcement officer is, they would have to fulfill all those same requirements and training requirements that Travis and I and every other deputy sheriff goes through now. And there's a significant financial burden associated with that yearly training cost.
And just for me, well, for all of us, if we have a substation already functioning at IHS, correct? Then we now have Brown and Pierce, and was it Mellon? Mellon, and eventually we're going to do Miller. And we'll be looking at 4 substations.
That would be,
Oh, they're gonna be called stop stations.
well,
Miller.
the campus.
Miller
on,
will be a stop
yeah, the office
station.
at, Miller and-
Define that for me.
I'll tell you what the difference
Okay.
is. A stop station is a place to give deputies an opportunity to come in, complete some paperwork, maybe use the restroom.
And their presence is
short break,
there. Okay.
And then they would leave.
Okay,
Whereas with a district office, like we'll have at Brown and Pierce or Mellon, you will have an increased presence there. But I want to make it very clear to the board that there will be times even throughout
Right.
the school day that there may not be any in those district offices.
right, right.
So you have one at IHS.
Yes.
Do you also have a resource officer at IHS?
Yes.
Okay, I guess we can move on.
Did Rhonda was giving financial information, was there anything else, Rhonda, that, I just want to make sure y'all heard all the options.
Yeah, the
And
money.
of course, you know, one of the other things I looked at is we totally different way. If we did option 2B and we did not do any school resource officers, and went with all school safety, but that would create even more problems for Travis. I don't think we want to go that route. And of course, option 3 is maintaining what we have with the, well, it's the Guardian program. So, you know, with the funds that we have, we could have a school resource officer in every school except for 7, and then implement the Guardian program, which the cost would be covered by the money that. the
He wrote that
sheriff's office
down.
is gonna get.
I would,
One
I'm
thing
sorry.
that came up,
It's the short arm of the law.
one of you just did say about the current interpretation.
Oh.
I know yours, the attorney said that the interpretation that there might not have to be an SRO or someone armed in every school. But I want to go back to the governor's letter that said he expects one at each school at the beginning of the 2018-19 school year, and it's something that.
Yeah, but that may
Travis
not
was
come to fruition.
Earlier today, from the statute says one at each school, so I'm not sure where the interpretation is coming from, but I know everybody's gonna look at it differently.
Assigned.
Yeah, that word assigned.
Assigned.
I'm just looking at the governor's.
Right,
letter,
right.
He says, I expect one at each school.
And I would recommend that too, especially what we learned in Parkland. We only have minutes, and if somebody's at another school, then I think we would be irresponsible by not having some type of armed personnel in every school.
I concur.
The last question, I knew I emailed you late, but again, we keep hearing that this is a shared responsibility. I know Alachua County is giving all their safe school and say, hey, we need an officer at every school, work it out, and the sheriff's picking up the tab basically on that, a big 50-50. Gilcrest pays for 4 deputies, they pay $100,000. The sheriff's office puts it in their budget. So I guess my point is, have we, I mean, if the majority of the districts are sharing the responsibility fiscally of 50-50, how likely is that gonna be a possibility for SROs with us?
Well, I can't necessarily speak for the Board of County Commissioners or how amenable they would be to an increase in our budget. I can tell you that last year, we had arguably probably the most difficult year financially for the county, which resulted in a millage increase. And a subsequent increase in all of our taxes that we paid. I was fortunate enough last year to be able to return a substantial amount of money to the county. But you also have to consider that whenever I took office on January 3rd of 2017, we were 1 complete shift short just in patrol. So 12 positions short just in patrol. And that's where a lot of that excess lapse money came from that we were able to return to the county. I dare say that return will not be nearly as robust this coming year because our staffing levels are much higher than what they were.
So let's say out of our general fund, we need 775,000 is what Rhonda gave us. So are you willing to commit half of that and we pay half? To even ask the commissioners for that?
We can certainly petition the commissioners and ask them for the additional funds. But I can tell you that from the conversation that I've had, this coming budget year is shaping up to be just as difficult, if not more difficult, to bring a balanced budget for this year.
You know, just a question to pop out to the board. We went with the Guardian program. Why do we need SROs at all? Sorry. Please, Gina, please.
I'm sorry, the Guardians can only respond in an active shooter role.
Right, they wouldn't be able
So
to
we
do
wouldn't have anybody do it, right.
That can respond when you have
fights and stuff,
other
yeah.
problems.
Yes, okay.
And we felt it necessary to have one at least in each of our secondary schools, just because of the nature that
Right.
things that happen there.
So-
So it is a clear distinction.
Yeah, because I've already reached out to some city council in our municipalities as far as would they be willing to share the cost of a Crescent City, Interlochen Police, Palaca Police, and what they're, not to put all the financial burden on you, but let's say of that 775,000, if we asked, okay, we need half to come from police and sheriff's departments, we say we want Milton Bernie, we need Crescent City, we need you to contribute half the salary because you're only working 180 days to a deputy, and Interlochen. Have we discussed any of those options with them? I mean, I have, and they were very excited about the possibility, and I didn't know if,
Lack of police too.
right, Palaca, and, yeah. So I guess we haven't explored that as an option, not to ask the sheriff's department and the county commissioners to put it all, to burden the cost completely. But if we say we got 2 Palaca police, paid half their salaries, 1 Interlochen and 1 Crescent City, and then we would only have to ask the sheriff's department to pick up 6 SRO. And then if we said, hey, we need you to pay half of those 6. I mean, there's a lot of.
Want to look at everything.
Yeah.
No, I understand completely. I also want the board to understand that several years ago, we entered into an agreement with the district to answer all calls for service on every Putnam County school district property. And that was largely as a result of some of the alarm fees that were associated with
City of
some of the
Palaca.
municipalities responding to alarms and additional calls for service at some of the school campuses. And while it's certainly worth looking at, my position is that if you have one-stop shopping for all your law enforcement needs, I think you're gonna get a better continuity of service rather than having multiple providers provide that service.
It's been my experience that, and I've been through this as we've negotiated with law enforcement agencies in the past, that each municipality would like a piece of the pie. They want officers they can assign duties after school hours on weekends or during the summer and the things that we talked about earlier. So they all want a piece of the pie. And we have stayed and tried to work with the single agency as a partner because of just certain areas of continuity. It is, it was inviting because some of the city police officers, you feel like, would know some of the kids in certain towns very well, but our law enforcement, the sheriff department, seem to be on the same beat. So that's why we've traditionally stayed with Putnam County. I
We
don't,
could fiscally afford it, and the sheriff, but why should the sheriff, if we're trying to ask for some type of help financially, why would we not ask all of our municipalities at this point if it's, if he can only offer a $145,000 contribution to an additional 3 SROs and 1 supervisor, then I guess reaching out to the other municipalities seems like at least a question that needs to be asked.
They're also, let's not forget, they're also contributing about $250,000 to $300,000 toward the cost of the ones we currently have.
Right.
We're doing like a 60-40 split, which I've done the numbers on, the ones that we currently have at, the current rate of pay without having the capital expenditure. They are contributing toward that too. The 145,000 is just towards
The new ones, right, right.
But it's-
3 new
it's
ones.
also worth mentioning too, that the current youth resource deputies that we have, we actually absorb all the costs for that are associated with equipment replacement. Whenever there's a new car that's purchased, you're looking at.
But aren't they working 180 days? Is that it, part-time? I mean, is that the reality?
We mandate that they are on school campus during student contact hours. We don't actually allow them to take any vacation time.
Okay.
So like I said earlier, what we have done is refocused our priorities with youth resource deputies, and they're focusing primarily in their off time on programs that impact our youth, partnering with our juvenile crime prevention office, our police athletic league, and those other programs. So they're not just out working the road anymore.
Board members, I don't know how many meetings ago, but within the near past, I pulled this item because I had a question, so you might remember it. It's the Combined Voluntary Cooperation and Assistance Law Enforcement Mutual Aid Agreement, because I questioned whether or not we needed to sign it, but since we do technically have a police force, we signed it. But this is a mutual aid agreement between all the municipalities, and I think that's what we're talking about here. I mean, they're agreeing to cooperate with our law enforcement, but why can't they cooperate with our safe schools problem?
Correct.
And that's just what you're saying,
Yeah.
Nikki.
Yeah, that's,
Well, it's in
Takes
the,
a village.
it was, I will go back, I remember now the billing rates of the local municipality law enforcement to school alarms going off and problems, and it was astronomical, and I know it takes I guess it takes a village. I heard that from some president one time. But anyway, I'm satisfied to hear what we're hearing. I would like to just see you guys come up with some real innovative, deceptive ways to save money and make it appear that we have Tyrannosaurus Rexes around the campus, you know. In other words, that we're strong and hardened schools, and I think y'all have already met, and you're probably going to be thinking more about, stuff like that.
And Nikki, in talking with the other municipalities in Crescent City, Palatka, and Interlochen, they, from what I'm understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying that they were saying that they're eager to be a part of this. Now, does that part of it mean that we will put monies in, or we want to put our monies in and our people in? Because sometimes you can say, I want to be a part of it because it is serious, and we are willing to donate X amount of dollars.
Well, and I feel like that's why they need to be invited to the table for discussion, and they haven't been. And when I reached out to them individually just to get an opinion on it, and that was their opinion. Of course, this is personal opinion until they come to the table and talk numbers and things that we can offer and what we can't. But it has to be a board decision to say, yeah, we want to reach out. And maybe that's just my opinion. I mean, it has to be a board decision to say, we want to reach out to all the municipalities and see if there's something you could offer to help.
Yeah.
Okay,
see why
meaning
not.
their finances.
at least have them on the task
Yeah.
force.
Well, knowing that they've been asked,
They are.
this question has come up for 25, 30 years now. I mean, I wouldn't know, I don't understand exactly why you would unilaterally try to bargain for the board without talking to all of us in advance, but
No, it was an opinion. It
well,
was-
that's- okay,
it wasn't-
well,
It wasn't bargaining, hey, will you offer 50,000? What do you, it wasn't like that at all.
You said you've personally talked to everybody. and
No, I did not
You
say
do
that.
it all the time, David.
I did not
Okay.
say that, but
Well, then correct me then, I'm wrong. I just think, I thought they had a seat at the table and had some concern. I know they came to one of the earlier meetings, or the Palatka police did, and stated their opinion and walked out. I don't know exactly what occurred, but
When was that?
one of our earlier security meetings, the mayor and I believe, who, was it Jason Shaw? Was he here? I think Jason was here.
No.
But anyway, they came
Okay, it
in,
wasn't
they were here before the meeting and they left before the
Advisory,
meeting
superintendent's
started.
advisory meeting?
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe
that was not a board meeting, it was an advisory meeting.
Advisory meeting, yeah. Anyway, I remembered y'all, I guess you didn't remember.
We have, by the way, and I won't get into the makeup of the committee right now because that's for a later meeting, but we have included some of the people you've asked from the Palaca Police Department. So they will be on that task force.
As is the mayor.
Yes.
Ran into him this
Yes.
morning.
Right.
What about, I mean, so Crescent City and Interlochen would not, at this point, be on the committee? Is that something? I mean, even if they're not on the committee, I feel like some point we have to reach out and even ask if that
It
wasn't.
would be appropriate if we invited them to present. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
Again, we had so many slots we had to fill.
Right, so not even if, yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
we
maybe
can,
the task force could ask them.
I think that's what Thomas
Specifically.
meant. Is that what you meant?
Yeah,
Mr.
isn't that what
Good
you meant?
idea.
Actually invited, we're currently now having to trim down the list. We went back and reviewed the board language from when you guys made the complement of 21 for the membership. And we were over trying to accommodate all the additional requests for people you guys suggested. And we reached out to them and they agreed, and we said, well, we got a cut. It's cut from the ones we initially asked first. So we're already bumping people off the list, trying to hit every one of those different categories that they came up with.
And is it a possibility to go ahead and, I know that the superintendent set this time and date of this to make sure that they are available those days?
We've been doing that.
Okay, because I mean, they'd say, yeah, I want to be on it, and then, well, these are the 3 days we're meeting. Oh, I can't because I'm going to miss 2 of them.
No, that's part of the conversation.
Okay, great. Appreciate that.
if I may, and I don't know if this is one of your questions, I would like the sheriff and Rhonda, I know the timing, I know there's some questions about timing, and we did move the vote back from April 17th to the May 1st meeting. But I want, if you don't mind, both of them just to respond to the timing of the decision. And I think we have a couple things that I just want you to consider, and I don't know which one of y'all want to talk about it, but I think timing is of the essence that we move forward. So if both of you could address that, I think that would be helpful for the board.
Okay, I think I heard you say that the Guardian vote would be May 1st.
That's correct. Well, pick one of the 3 choices, what I'm saying.
I always bring allocations to the school district. And
Rhonda, can you get that mic a little bit closer, I think?
always bring allocations in May because the schools are wanting to place people, and it's not just allocations for our instructional, it's support, it's departments, it's everybody. And a lot of decisions that we make will, bottom line, it's gonna affect allocations. No way we can get around it. I hate to say that, but it will. So we've got 2 board meetings in May. If that's the May 1st, I would then bring allocations based on decisions that the board makes to the May 17th meeting. We'll be at Finn that week, but Finn ends Thursday at noon, so I could be here by the 3:30 meeting that I'm bringing allocations to you at and everything, because I've already got schools wanting to know their allocations for next year and everything, and we always do it, usually the first meeting in May, but that's pretty a quick turnaround time right now with everything else that we're dealing with. So that's one of my timelines I'm looking at, to try to get allocations to you all in a timely manner.
Well, I think it goes without saying that I don't envy each of you in your respective positions and the decision that we have to make collectively. But the reality of it is that we all have a meal that's been placed before us that might be unpleasant, but we're unfortunately going to have to eat it in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Specifically with regard to the time constraints Dr. Surrency is referring to, in order, if it's the board's will to partner with the sheriff's office and implement the Guardian program, we would need to know no later than May 1st so that we have adequate time to get in all that training, order all the appropriate supplies that we'll need, and make sure that we have everything in place. I'm personally not willing to put my seal of approval on this program unless we have adequate time to do it with excellence. And just as a quick follow-up to that, regardless of the decision the board makes, it weighs heavy on my mind that if you can find additional money, or if it falls out of the sky for us to hire, 10 youth resource deputies, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that it will be next to impossible to recruit, hire, and train them before the start of the next school year.
Well, that's why we need to look at the other agencies helping also if we don't go with the Guardian
You also
program.
have to consider, Kathy, that I've talked to my counterpart in St. Johns County. They are looking to hire an additional 25 youth resource deputies, in addition to the 33 patrol deputies that they're short now. Marion County needs approximately 20 to 22 additional youth resource deputies.
It's the whole state. We're all in the same boat.
I was gonna add to that, yep.
With all of those other agencies right now. And while we've gotten our salary at least in a range where we're competitive with some of the surrounding agencies, we're $4,000 to $6,000 behind them as opposed to $10,000 behind them, just a year ago.
That's good.
I was just gonna add, it reminded me on the conference call Friday with all the board attorneys, Miami-Dade and Broward County are struggling to find enough people coming out of the police academies to fill these new positions. I don't know, the sheriff may be able to comment more so related to this area of the state, but finding somebody who is a certified law enforcement officer is difficult, at least in the southern part of the state, because there are not enough people going through the academy and graduating to become a certified law enforcement officer.
Which again, if we hired 4 over the summer and we had them assigned at 8 schools, they split schools, I mean, that's not impossible.
Until we
Because
can get more.
until you always have if we decided that that's the route we wanted to go, you always have the ability to hire what you can and then split the assignments. I guess my point is, I mean,
they
it's
start schools every year without enough teachers. I mean, I know it's not the
That's
same thing, but,
exactly
you know,
true.
we're always,
short on
as
it.
we find them, we place
15
them.
bus drivers still need to be hired.
Yeah.
We might be on the 13 now, but, there's still allocations open.
Have we signed the contract for the new buses? No? See,
We haven't even had that presented to y'all.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering. But I mean, there's a savings if we didn't do it that way, like we used to not do
That's
it that
different.
way.
It's paid in capital.
It's-
Not paid.
You can't pay, it's different funding categories.
I had one last question for Travis, because we used to have 3 additional safety officers, or whatever you wanted. I mean, we had Bucky and Ray and 3?
Part of the savings from last year.
2, just 2. We've always had a total, we've never had more than 4 at one time. So what would you say their training in the past, what did that consist of? Did you do any type of training?
They were former school resource officers.
And you did it, and that's why okay, so the sheriff's office didn't do it.
Sheriff's Office helped us with a small portion of it, some of the high risk.
Okay,
Like, for example, like firearms, we would use some of their instructors.
right. So let's say that we added a couple allocations, you said you'd need another supervisor or something, so what would be a feasible amount of security guards if that were something we wanted to do where you wouldn't have to hire a supervisor? Because we had 2, but we had 4 before, so now we're down to 2, so,
One of those was a supervisor, Bucky was the supervisor.
okay. So he also served, so the supervisor served as a school,
I've taken on those duties. as
Okay.
well as
so that would be a shared responsibility.
my duties in the student services.
Okay, I was just curious, say we added 4 security guards and
I would need someone.
so if you hired 4, but if you hired 2, I guess I was trying to get a number to where you,
Hire half of one, I may not. One or more, I'll need some help.
I like,
Half a person?
Yeah, he needs help now.
Except in the jail.
He needs help now, without adding
a,
in.
well, yeah, because he's truancy.
I like
Gotcha.
I like the unanimity of working with the single agency and trying to do that. I think it's obvious, you guys know where I stand, and I hear where you stand, and So at some point, a majority of us will make a decision on how to proceed, but this is still, we'll do it a year, and then we're gonna look at how it turns out, and hopefully nobody gets hurt, and we'll try to, go from there and make it even better over the few years.
We also have a task force working on this, and we haven't heard anything from them.
That's right.
And it's a good group
Still
of
more
people.
questions to go over.
Yeah. I had some.
Well, we're gonna have that plan on them, making a recommendation to you on May 1st, because we've scheduled three meetings. Want to give them adequate time to,
Oh, not with us.
no, not with y'all,
No, David, not
prior
with you.
to May 1st, so they can come back with a recommendation.
Gator, were there other questions that we haven't touched on?
Give me just a moment to review the list. and
Okay, I'm sorry.
We will cover everything. From the list of questions that I had submitted to me, it looks like we've pretty well covered all of them in some way, shape, form, or fashion.
And you've covered the ones that I had. Let me give you and this may sound silly, but I'm gonna use Sharon Hughes as an example since she's here. So Sharon Hughes is teaching 3 periods of Latin, but she's also a dean 3 periods. So she has been selected to carry a concealed weapon. She's up at the board conjugating one of those Latin verbs, and someone approaches her from behind because they know she's got a weapon back there. What's Sharon Hughes gonna do?
Weapons retention is actually one of the key components of the training program. So there are specific techniques that we would train each of the participants in about how to properly shelter and retain their firearm.
Little as she, yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And it's not even hypothetical.
Okay.
Rhonda, did you say roughly 790,000 additional safety dollars this year from the funding that the state's sending out? Did I get this?
No, I think
Not
it,
additional, that's
total.
I think it was an additional 305,000 from what we.
Is that
what the
inclusive
district got last year.
is that inclusive? That includes our portion of the 99 million for infrastructure upgrades? Okay, so there's still dollars.
That's a competitive grant, that's for the hardening of schools.
Right, okay.
Yes.
And the 75 million for counselors, that's
That's
separate?
separate.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we hadn't touched on that. That's a whole nother.
Additional schools or additional counselors.
The
Okay, so
hardening of
those are
schools.
different dollars.
That's right.
Risk assessment and everything like that, and then you have, the school districts have to apply for the competitive grants. Our share of the mental health allocation is $337,989, and we'll have, discussions with principals, I think,
Wednesday, yeah,
Wednesday.
right,
What time is that?
8:30. Well,
Correction, that discussion starts at noon.
okay, yeah, that's later in the agenda, yeah.
Okay, I might
Thank
like
you.
to come to
Yeah, that includes the guardian program.
Charlie, one of the main concerns that as I read through the policy bugged me was I kept coming across zero tolerance in this thing for certain acts. Zero tolerance became a real popular acronym 20 years ago, and the fact of the matter is it didn't do anything but create more problems because you wound up taking kids who didn't get in any serious altercation and you put them out of school or sent them to the, surely there's going to be some wiggle room and some common sense put in this discipline as we go through, because there's more to school, and we're on one issue of school safety and security now, but when you go to hearing zero tolerance, that's either or, and there's no,
Black and white.
Mm-hmm.
and there are a lot of shades of
Gray.
common sense gray that needs to be thought about before you go to that. It's like the state telling the districts a few years ago that they're going to have to mark down discipline infractions of certain types, and if they don't, then it's, they're gonna come down on the district, and then they use that to declare a school with a certain number of discipline referrals or a district as an unsafe district or an unsafe school. And the state is part of the problem, because then people start not taking discipline as seriously, and they start not writing it down. And I know there's nothing you guys can do to change this, but you need to understand that when they did that and started declaring this school a safe school and this one an unsafe school, trying to mirror the A school and the F school, all they did was make it to where the schools let up on discipline so much they became totally learning it's very difficult to take place in a school like that.
Well, that leads to my question, Travis. I mean, is there anything that we can do as far as our discipline policy at our schools to, beef those up, make sure that we're following the letter of the law and how we discipline and what we do and what we, that it's the same at every school and,
I would think that we are doing each of those,
okay.
to be honest.
I will, go ahead.
I was gonna say the zero tolerance, I was actually reading some of that today. And it did change. One thing that was unique was, the statute years ago went to where it said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but like petty acts.
Yeah.
Not to be
So they're
considered,
more
right.
specific now.
And one of the changes in this new legislation says something to the effect that that's still the case, but then if a student commits more than one misdemeanor crime, then that crime, they do have to consult with law enforcement on that second one. So it was beefed up and then.
Crime in school or outside?
No,
Okay.
in school. It was beefed up way up here originally, and then they backed off, and now it's taken a turn back up a little bit, so. And also it requires a referral to mental health services also, if they commit one of those acts.
Right, which
like
one?
possessing or anything.
But really, even though that does parallel this, what we're talking about, that's still a discussion for another day, because what you're trying to do now is trying to just make the decision of a majority of the board on what we're gonna do, so.
Well, can I just bring up something that just came up? I just want to comment. I'm the board rep on the expulsion committee. We did away with Solution Center for this year, and we have them at the 3 high schools. And like Jenkins Middle School is bringing kids back because they don't have any seats, and I don't know if it's working. So that's, I know it's a topic for another day, but it seems to be a problem, or we have to allocate more space, another room, whatever.
And that is something we're gonna be talking about in our principals meeting, is talk about the effectiveness and possibly come back with another recommendation, but we do wanna look at the data and see just how effective it's been.
That's good.
That's good, thank
Yeah,
you.
we're open for that.
One last budget question, and if I'm wrong, Rhonda, then just point that out, because I'm trying to run the numbers. So basically, you said again, if we had all SROs, it'd be additional $775 out of general fund. Does that include the $340 additional dollars, $340,000 from the new safe schools?
No, that's an additional cost. We're already utilizing that by adding on, the 3 and 1, so.
3 officers and 1 supervisor.
And you proposed it from the sheriff's office, so, because that would give us a total of 11 SROs and 2 supervisors, and that 700 is the cost for 7 new,
For the first year, and then $500,000. So, I mean, I guess when I keep running the numbers, it's like if the county commission would even consider half of that towards that, I mean, we could do it. I guess I'm looking at, if they said they'd commit a $380,000, again, this is something that, I mean, this is what everybody wants. This is the community, keeping the community safe. I don't see, when people call and say, we want all SROs, I guess, are you even gonna ask the commissioner for any additional dollars for SROs?
I think we should.
Well, no, it's his budget. He has to ask. But if we're the ones,
Paying for them.
Well, In my personal opinion, I think it's the board's responsibility to petition the Board of County Commissioners for additional funding for youth resource deputies, depending on if you want to purchase, I hate to say purchase, but employ additional youth resource deputies. That's a decision that you have to make collectively as a board.
So but my point is, it's coming through your office. You would have to write this into your budget.
Yes.
Okay.
And, again, I go back to my earlier statement that this year is shaping up to be even more fiscally challenging than what last year was at the county level.
And even if we were able to do what Nikki is suggesting, you've already stated the time to get those people
I dare say.
hired and trained, it would be pretty much impossible.
It's 10 extra people. And we have the police academy in our town. We haven't even tried.
We don't have a
No, it's in St. Augustine.
Well, 30 minutes away.
I'm telling you, it's a feeder for the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office and the Blackburn
Yeah.
County Sheriff's Office, because they pay $4,000 to $6,000 a year higher than what we do. Now, we have been very successful at recruiting some local talent here that I think is gonna stick around with us for a long time. But they're few and far between and in high demand.
I have a question. So, let's say, you're gonna do the STAR program and you're gonna train these educators. And have you set an idea, do you have an idea of how many at each school? I know you probably can't say it. What will the cost of that training be? And 152 hours is about 4 weeks. And they're all committed to 4 weeks, 40 hours a week of training before school starts?
But we can't, again, I want to interject, I don't want to get into training schedule or anything.
I'm just telling
Yeah.
you, you gotta have that much time over
Sure,
the
that's what I'm
summer
saying, yeah.
to get them trained.
You're absolutely right.
But
You're
that's
right.
part of the confidentiality, so if somebody's
I'm
not.
not trying to break any
That's
confidentiality.
just, I'm just saying his answer is, because if he tells that, somebody will be there with a camera taking a picture, everybody walks in.
Well,
Yeah.
we got a
Okay.
summer.
But that, just to answer your question, that is the expectation prior to the beginning of the school year.
That's why we're working towards that May 1st deadline, so that we can get all of these individuals identified, if it's the will of the board, get them trained, and then get them back to their respective schools so they have time to make adequate preparations for the coming school year.
Yeah, I mean, a 3-year-old could figure out.
Listen, I don't have a problem with the school board writing a letter to the county commission requesting that they share this responsibility and signed by every school board
City
member.
commissioner.
Oh, I just soon go person.
Oh, I don't, I think a letter would be fine, and we can let our chairman go take it, and whoever wants to go with her can go. It's fine.
Interject here for just a second. I don't know if you all recall last year when we went before the Board of County Commission.
They're gonna want money back.
And I'm sure it's coming back this year, but they're looking at pulling $200,000 worth of funding from us because their funding is so strapped. We went, you went with me.
The pari-mutuel
you went with
funding.
me, the pari-mutuel
Yeah.
funds. They had made a decision not to, even though.
Not to
in
touch
the
it.
20 years I've been here, we've always received it. They had made a decision or had put it on their budget.
Yeah, it was the woman who did the budget, though. I think it was a
This
new
is a whole
woman.
This is
different
the safety of
thing.
their children.
Well,
But they did warn us that it might be something
Rhonda,
that was getting this year.
And I agree with Rhonda that that's the reason I normally wouldn't want to go, but I've heard enough board members say enough stuff that we might as well get that over with. If that's what you want to do, do it and see what the response is. And whether they say, here, all right, we're going to take this 200,000 back and here's $100,000, you know. It's,
I just feel like until we exercise every last option, everything we've said, oh, you can't hire 10, there's no way, you can't do this, there's no way, I mean, I guess we haven't tried, Gator, and that's my whole point. It seems like your mind's made up that the Guardian program is the only way and no other thing is gonna be explored, and that bothers me.
No, I respectfully disagree. I think you're trying to put words in my mouth. What I'm trying to do is give the board options so that you are informed and can make an informed decision about what works best, not for the rest of the state, but for Putnam County here. I'm telling you, it will be a physical impossibility for me to hire and train 10 additional deputies before the beginning of the next school year, before August.
And that's very feasible and that's common sense. And there's no way that the governor can expect them all to be trained. But to try to hire them, what if we get 8 hired? I
I think
Not according to our legal
Gator.
counsel, not according to our legal counsel.
You said that the STAR program requires more training hours than an actual deputy is required to have, right?
No, actually, let me clarify
Did I misunderstand that?
No, what I said was that a participant in the STAR program, in my opinion, based on the training that we have proposed, will be better equipped to handle an active shooter on a school campus than an average new recruit who we would hire from the Law Enforcement Academy at St. John's.
So, but is it because of class schedules or what that you wouldn't have enough time to train SROs? I don't see what would be the difference in training the SROs than the STAR people.
Finding them.
Well,
Is that what you meant?
well, no, it's gonna be a challenge just to identify and find these people and then recruit them.
Yeah.
Then we have to put them through a psychological and a background.
Yeah.
And then a field training program, the model that we use is a 16-week model. So there's just no way that we have enough time to identify, recruit, hire, and then train all of those individuals.
I would anticipate that out of 4 or 5 applicants, that there might not be but one that you would trust having a gun around kids. I mean, this is not just putting somebody in a body out there and a couple of boots on. This is finding somebody that's got the know-it-all to work around children, and you have the ultimate confidence that they're not going to twirl their gun around or play with it and shoot somebody by accident, you know.
I understand
They
that.
can pass all the psychologicals in the world and all the training in the world. And I've seen some smart PhDs, and I've seen some PhDs that couldn't walk around and chew bubble gum. So it's just depends on, you know, there's more to it. And this is his level of expertise. It's not our level, but our questions are good questions. I'm just saying, the whole training aspect is totally different. We could pick up some teacher aides, put them in a little white shirt, put a belt on them that looked like they had I'm serious, and let them walk around and just, you know, monitor the lunchroom and the hallways. And the kids, elementary kids, would think they're law enforcement people. You could fake them, but that's still not the you know, it might suffice, like Nikki said, in a couple of schools to have a few people like that for a while till you hired more of the ones you felt more comfortable with. But
I just think it's very telling that one county, was it Brevard?
That's it.
One county in the state of Florida is considering this program. So that means there's 66 counties that really aren't even considering it.
well,
And the majority are splitting the cost with the sheriff's department.
and
The majority.
We're already splitting that cost. We're
Well,
right by
I'm saying in the continuance, right now you're at 40/60, but to add 10, you only gave us 145,000, so that wouldn't be splitting, then it'd be like 80/30
Yes,
maybe.
and then you also heard me speak to the cost of equipment replacement, such as vehicles, stuff wears out. Bulletproof vests have a shelf life of about 5 years, they have to be replaced. All of those
Even
things
if
are
there's no
costly,
bullets
and
fired.
those things add up, and the sage words of my grandfather, you mighty pennies and the dollars watch after themselves, and that's how we've been able to be so successful at making this contract work the way that we have for so many years.
it's something we're tasked with, and we should have been doing it all along. The state should fund it, the government should fund it. Everybody ought to have a finger in this instead of just the school board having to come up with this. But the reality is, we're gonna be stuck again. And I think Kathy made that point the other day, that it's like these unfunded mandates. This is gonna turn,
Every year.
every year, it
There's
turns, it's
another
gonna be something
unfunded
else.
mandate.
And I've just felt really good about our relationship with the sheriff's office, and I don't need to go ad nauseum into that, but I mean, we're gonna have to continue. The time's gonna roll, and graduation's gonna be here, and school's gonna start, and we gotta be ready.
So you made a recommendation to write a letter from the school board asking the county commission to,
It wasn't a recommendation. I said, why don't we write a letter
so is
recommending?
that something the school board would, I know we can't vote on it, but verbally say, consider it?
Well, if that's what a majority of this board wants to do, I don't have a
Then
problem.
maybe whoever authors the letter have a draft of that to be voted upon for next board meeting, and then upon approval of the whole board, then it would be sent.
Ms. Crawford being an ex-English teacher, I would rather her
I don't want
and
to do that by myself.
get with the board attorney and write something that's,
I'll write suggestions to him and then.
Okay. This may have already been answered. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sandy.
No, I'm just,
and before Sandy, let me finish on what you were just saying about getting with Charlie. You know, this comes before the county commission. They may tell us to go take a hike very nicely, and that's fine. I mean, that's the way it'll work. But you know, they're also getting someone that we talked about, the 180-day employees. These guys are able to do certain things on off hours and over the summer, and we would, you know, that aren't really on school board property. So we do.
So they'd be getting a boost.
In
And
the
we're-
past, and this is for the county to know, not the sheriff's department, they know. I mean, we've given portables, we've provided training centers, SWAT training centers, buses to haul SWAT teams around town. We have a history of aid with the sheriff's office and other municipalities, but particularly with the sheriff's office and with the county to try to work together. So
Will you
I,
make a list of all that?
Positive working
you're
environment.
gonna write the letter, because you're an English teacher.
Oh, you're good. You know the history.
When I was
I don't-
superintendent,
Well, I'm trying not to say that.
No, but that's.
but now you need
I
to.
think you
Now
and,
you need to.
but now I'm,
We need it,
When
you don't
we
wanna
need
say
it, you
it.
won't say it.
well, I think they know.
and now
We've
for
bought,
clarification,
we bought drug dogs, gun-smelling dogs, and they're $25,000-$30,000 or more dollars. I don't remember, Gator. They're expensive. For the sheriff's office, we bought uniforms. This is BG before Gator. He was a little resource officer guy then. Anyway, I mean, we've done so many things. I mean, from buying night vision equipment for firefighters and smoke filled rooms and law enforcement officers, and we bought AR-15s. We bought.
Don't tell me that.
No, because you didn't want your officers running into a school with a.
And they have not had to.
All right, I'm
Gator,
writing it.
when are the next board meetings? Because I think, again, time's of the essence. I want to make sure, because they need to approve that on the 17th, the letter.
I need something
Seem relevant.
clarified.
They're gonna say no.
Sometime after the 17th and before the 1st? Is that,
I think that's the best idea you have, just
And
try.
That's all I'm
are we
saying.
asking,
That's all I'm saying, exhaust every.
Consider it until, we can do this later now, but their funds don't become available until September. for
That's true.
It'll become, they will need.
I don't think we can get it prepared by
when's the one after
tomorrow.
that?
They will need something, and we're not just talking about law enforcement. We gave them.
So they're opposite,
Several acres for the
opposite
senior
every other
center.
week than we are.
April 24th. Oh, yeah. See?
Senior Center,
Okay, so
Johnson,
that could be,
Bill Johnson School.
and are we asking for these
We help.
additional funds in this letter to support which program?
Toward Kelly's.
Hiring more res.
Hiring, the hiring, I know it's for school safety, but if they say, yes, I'm gonna give you the money, which program are we looking at?
We haven't decided. We're
Oh,
just
okay,
asking
you're
for
just
help.
asking for the money
We
now.
can't commit to a
Okay, all
program.
right, all
but
right,
you heard
all right.
Rhonda say at best, that would
So
not even
houses
be
could
available
tie
till,
in.
if.
Right,
if at
September.
best, when their fiscal year is, which is different from ours.
Okay.
Is that something we should ask the municipalities while we're asking, or no? Should we send a letter to the Crescent City
I think we
Interlochen
need
and
to ask
Palaca?
everybody we can ask for.
Let's try the county commission first.
Just some food for thought here. If you're going to ask the Board of County Commission for additional funding, I think you would have to ask for option one, which would be funding for additional youth resource deputies.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Which that's what you were asking.
And that's what I was
Yeah,
asking,
yeah.
are we just
That makes sense.
willy-nilly asking for it?
Oh,
Or
no.
are we
We just want some
specifying?
money.
Right.
Would
No,
you
we-
consider
Once we
being,
put that down on paper, we have committed to the school resource, no?
yeah, you don't have to commit.
Yeah, I think for the asking of the money is not necessarily the final decision of the board, that, you'd be going with option one. It's more of testing the waters and seeing what type of response that you get to give
Right.
confidence whether there will be anything at all.
And reiterate that we are only asking for the officer to be on our campus 180 days. We're not asking for summer camp or any other services from them. We're only asking for that.
But we are only going to employ full-time law enforcement deputies. That's why we have that 60-40 split now.
But you already said you need more allocations, so if you consider the fact that you're short your allocations, this would help alleviate your problem.
365 days.
Let me be clear, my ultimate goal would be to have a youth resource deputy on every campus. I would love that personally. Each of you that know me personally know that I was a youth resource deputy for
Right.
years, and I'm very passionate about the program. So I would love nothing more than to have a youth resource deputy on every campus. I'm just telling you that if we could identify a funding source for it, I think it's impossible for us to be able to hire and recruit and then train them based on the timeline that I gave you about what our field training program looks like.
But we could get.
But it would be a work in progress.
And not look.
Right.
and
It'd be a
not
work in
withstanding
progress.
that, I'm not an advocate of taking someone that we hire fresh out of the academy, putting them through a field training program, and then plugging them directly into a school. I think they need to mature some as a law enforcement officer, and then spend some time working in patrol before they make that transition.
Well, you may have some that would like to do that for a change.
Sure.
I mean, how did we get the ones we got?
That's exactly how we got them.
Right, exactly.
Maybe they could
Work the road for
do that, you know.
I still have a problem about the money, and I apologize. Rhonda, didn't you say we're paying $60,000 per? At one time, didn't you say 60?
Yeah.
Or did I get that from numbers you threw out today?
$440.
$444,024 for 8 SROs and 1 supervisor.
So that's 9, okay.
9 people.
That's about 50,000 a year each.
Yeah, there's additional costs that they kick in, of course, because that doesn't fully fund those people.
I think we only-
Advance.
So
only
the
pays for
contract,
7.25.
that actually pays for 7.25 positions. We pay for the additional 1.75 of the positions, which includes one of the supervisors. And then
That's
cover
not
all the
60/40.
recruiting costs associated with it.
For instance, if we don't hire a supervisor at the beginning of school, that isn't gonna cause any problems. Or if we have to share an officer between Price and Interlochen, or the substation is at Interlochen, so that would suffice until we got one hired. You could have,
That doesn't suffice because there's not a continual presence there. You have a district commander who's in that office, and he might be in that office maybe 30% of the time. And then there's a clerical person that's assigned there that handles walk-ins if someone needs a copy of a report or needs their fingerprints taken or something like that. So I don't want to misguide the board. There's not going to be a continual presence during the school day at any of those district offices.
substations, right?
Right.
But
Yeah, one at IHS, oftentimes I would see 4 or 5 cars in the parking lot, and sometimes I would think it was unoccupied.
Right.
On a, day-to-day basis.
Exactly, however, the community
the presence
knows
of
they're
those-
there.
And
Presence.
that's the perception that we shot for
that is the
initially when that was
perception.
done. And that's what Sandy was talking about when she walked. I think it's a good idea.
And that's why it's so great to have those on campus.
Yes.
absolutely.
I will say, going back to what I told you I wasn't gonna talk about, in 2002, the Better Place Plan came up, and the county called and asked me to write a vision plan for children, and I found that the other night and read through it. And it addressed security, it addressed mental health needs in Putnam County, it addressed everything we're talking about. And actually, when the money comes to the county, it really goes mostly to paving roads and water and sewage. And that's, they don't have, even with that money, it's not been utilized in a way to, we're so shorthanded with our mental health, the ways that we have been able to channel kids that are mentally unstable, get them the help they need, get kids that are, we couldn't, I'm just gonna go ahead and say undocumented residents, instead of using the word illegal aliens, You got where you couldn't say that in public schools for a long time, but the undocumented citizens, you certainly couldn't get them the help you needed. So it just didn't, there's a lot of stuff dangling out there, and this money, the only thing I see that's going to come out of this that's going to be the most positive is just having more, the perception of more armed law enforcement in schools, because there's people that are going to, there's no way to 100% guarantee the safety that we want. I mean, it's, but now we've got a law that we've got to deal with, and we've got to do it in a manner that helps us protect all of our kids and employees, so.
And I do know that when you bring that up, that one of the local nonprofits is just trying to decide whether to ask the commissioners to put it on the ballot for a penny tax, and that would be all for education purposes. So that would be something, I know we can't even think about that money at this point, but that would be something in the future, if that did happen, that would address these needs that we could.
Actually, I think they're
has to be a-
asking for a half mil.
It would have to
Or
be.
half mil, I'm sorry.
It would have to be a mill, because you can't do a penny tax.
Half mil, sorry, half mil. Property taxes.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was just something that, who knows what the future, but that would be something as a funding option
And
to,
I think if that went through, that, and I know what you're talking about, if that were to go through, that would have to be approved by the voters, of course, in
Right.
November. But again, the actual funding would not come in until probably a year
correct.
after.
That's why I
So
said I
there's a-
hesitate to bring it up, but it's just
Yeah.
one of those pie in the sky when you try to look at all options.
Yeah,
and-
it's a down the road kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something to,
And it's not, again, I want to say on the record, the school or, or the, we're not, that's not a school tax is what I'm saying.
No.
That is totally separate.
it's all for
Right.
local entities.
Well, what's the timeline on the commission letter?
She's writing it now. Dear, she is writing it. We want to have it presented at the 24th meeting?
No. Tina Pinkerson?
I just wanted to say that I think you can hear the frustration. And,
Tina, you want to come up here to a microphone?
I'm sorry.
That's right. Just so we can hear you and see you.
You can hear the frustration. And I know that a lot of work has gone in with the sheriff's plan but I'm here from the school board, and as a former school board member, what they want, or what I'm hearing, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. You can be like my husband. But what they want is more of a presence on a daily basis with someone in that school that can respond accordingly when there are disturbances and things going on. And I think the frustration is that the money that's been allocated for the Guardian program is money that is allocated there's training, but yet they can only respond in one instance, and that is when there is an active shooter. And while that is good, it's what we tell our board members all the time, is that it is not good to make reactive policy. It's to be proactive in making policy. And this is a reactionary decision from Tallahassee. And I think, and it's not well written. There's a lot that's not there.
Right.
And so I think that while, there's the willingness, you see the willingness to work together and the appreciation for the plan and the urgency that's there, I think, I can respect the fact that what you see here is people who are committed to the safety of their students every single day. And it's like, when you heard somebody that can walk the campus and take care of those issues, that these people that are trained can't do that. And I think that's where the frustration lies in the part of the plan that's missing, is what they are able to do in the meantime. And I think that's where you're seeing this board's frustration, and feeling as though for their constituents, they have to, if that's what people want, then they have to look at every option before they go with the option that doesn't give them exactly what they want. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect
That
sense
does.
to me.
And I just, you could see the frustration, and I just wanted to
Thank you.
try to explain, because I know there's a lot of work in this timeline and all of the frustration that's there. And if this is happening in every district across the state, these kinds of discussions and problems.
Well, we've been handed a deck of cards, so to speak, from the legislature that has time constraints, definite money constraints, even manpower constraints. Even if we had the money, manpower is an issue. So it's a very complicated issue. And if we had time a year ago to plan this, that would even be difficult. But now we have a very short window. And we have other constraints of having to plan for next school year. And that's why, we're talking about allocations and that type of thing. So there's a lot of constraints on all of us.
We're all in the same boat, though. Every one of us.
And I look forward to the website, the Safe Schools Q&A, because again, when Charlie says their interpretation is you're assigned, but you're not there every second of the day, which of course we would want that, but that to me would be a better compromise to move forward and have a goal in mind to, again, to handle all kinds of mental illness and things that we haven't even, we're talking about a lot of behavioral issues that we keep bringing up, behavior issues. So the presence of an SRO on campus is going to help that in itself, just to have that ability to have a presence.
Well, I called Ruth Melton and Joy Frank today because I knew that I was gonna drive over. And the line that you were saying about the teacher and the exclusive, I had car duty. And I said, if I had car duty, was that an extra service? Could I have been one of those people to, be assigned?
selected,
And I
yeah.
could have, because it was an extra service.
Right.
And that's the thing that they said that was put into the law that makes it so ambiguous, because as you and I both know, as a classroom teacher, every
teacher has additional duties.
additional duties. And so it's.
Well, it just shows the ignorance when they wrote the
Well,
law.
but, and that was one of the things I was impressed with your STAR plan, was that, he said that was not something he was looking to do, was, train the teachers. That was.
But that doesn't, right. If we start this now and things change, leadership changes, who's going to say that that's going to stay the same? That's what it's scary, because the law is the law. The Florida law oversees everything. So Florida law says that those people with extra duties can do it, and, new leadership comes in and says, I want, then we have nothing to say about it.
It was just what she said, it's reactionary politics for
Knee-jerk.
the political election going on with Scott and Nelson. You had the Parkland shooting kids all marched, they went to Washington, somebody sent them. And there's money, it is something we should have taken care of when the shootings happened years ago, and now it's a knee-jerk reaction because it was in a very populated area in a very key state. So anyway, I think the board's on the right path. It's just been kind of like making sausage till now. It's not pretty, but it's gonna be good when it's through, the best we can make it.
Will the name be, the committee, you think the list will be on the
We're going to have the
published
list ready tomorrow.
Okay.
It'll be on board docs.
agenda? Okay.
Oh, great.
And we worked on that and finalized that today, so you should have it on board docs tomorrow.
Each of the.
Right.
And
And-
I might, go ahead, Rick, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we spent a lot of time on it. Some people meet two or more of those categories, so to speak, so
That's good.
You
But,
almost have to do that.
yeah, you
We
almost have to,
800
yeah.
people on it.
it's going to be a good committee, though.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Does anyone else?
What I was gonna mention in the letter, Nikki was taking some notes of things I
She's
said.
gonna send them to me.
It would probably be better not to tell them what we have done
Right.
and just let it go until we needed to make a
Okay.
plea of saying, this is what we
proofread
have
it.
done in the past. And of course, I'm sure they can say the same thing back to us in other
Yeah.
ways, so. Anyway,
And should we ask for a specific amount of money?
you better ask to the board members, not just me.
Well, I'm just throwing that out there to
Well,
everybody.
help.
I would say that we need to say we're looking at
State
to
an
secure the
amount.
schools that we feel is in the best interest of our, community is $775,000 out of additional general fund and what we would.
How can they help?
And then whatever they give, because if we don't state anything, they may give us 25,000. I mean,
Yes, all the
you know,
other
at
districts
least
in the state are
give some,
50-50
you know.
split. I mean, yeah. They know that. They go to their trainings too. I mean, it's common knowledge what the other districts are getting.
Nikki, I dare say that if we were to actually sit down and do a hard cost analysis, that you would find that we're right at about a 50-50 split right now with all the additional equipment and the additional costs that we bear, fuel purchases, vehicles, and everything else that things operate on a daily basis. So I understand what you're saying. We've got kind of a gentleman's agreement at the
Right.
sheriff's office with the board, and it hasn't really spelled out what all those hard costs are, but, I mean, they're there and we can easily identify.
Yeah, I guess it would just mean that even if we ask for limitations, say that we asked you to limit to say, wait, we don't, all the extra you're doing, would we want to just eliminate some of the frills and all the extra stuff you're doing in the summer to be able to provide more deputies during the school year as far as time constraints and what we're actually paying for the 180-day commitment? Because I guess you're doing so much, but is it all necessary, or could we just back it down to say, I mean, I don't know, there's just a lot of discussions as far as the job. You've told them to do 100% everything for the kids year round, I think,
We have a hard time recruiting full-time deputy sheriffs. I dare say if we offered part-time positions, we would get few of many applicants.
It's something to, I talked to an FHP, I talked to a Fish and Game. I had one guy, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. I'm still certified. And I was like, oh, wow, let's sign you up. I mean, it's just a conversation. It's thinking outside the box. The direct, all your corrections deputies, they're certified law enforcement. There's just a lot of other discussions as far as.
There's a distinction between a certified law enforcement officer and a certified.
It's two different
Right,
trainings.
but FWC, FHP, all the
They got the basic.
municipalities though, but if you find the right person for the job, I'm not saying any person off the street, but it's just one of those situations where, it's worth exploring.
We did have an alligator under a portable at Mosley one
There
time,
you go, there's your FWC.
and a bear in a dumpster at James A. Long.
So I guess it's just
We
when
had
you
a
say.
cow in the parking lot at Palaca High.
I killed a claw snake at Crescent City Elementary one time. It's now Middleton Bernie though.
Don't get yourself in trouble.
Well, I had to. It was
Okay,
poison.
does anyone else have anything pertinent to the conversation?
Hey, I love you guys. Y'all are so much fun to make sausage with.
Okay, we'll adjourn this special meeting.